This is number 2 in our series. Language isn't math. In mathematics, the same equation or statement always means the same thing. But language doesn't work that way at all. The same word, usually in most languages, has multiple meanings, and within the same meaning, there's a lot of subtle, nuanced differences that are very difficult to describe fully. So, the same sentence from the same person might mean two different things at two different times and in different contexts. This is why it's so hard for a computer to translate into a different language accurately. A computer can look up more or less equivalent words in another language, but it can never get all the nuance right. A word or phrase always has to be considered within its context, and its context must be considered at multiple levels. There's an immediate context within the same sentence, but you also have to consider the paragraph, the chapter, the whole book, and even other books by the same or similar authors. You have to consider the time and place it's written, the culture from which it sprang, and the audience that it's intended for. And that's just written language. Spoken language has voice inflections, posture, facial expressions, and all sorts of other body language that you can't get from words alone. A computer just can't take all those things into account. If it could, or if language were like math, you could feed the text of the Bible, the U.S. Constitution, a legal contract, or whatever you want to a computer, and the computer could tell you what it means. But it can't. As it is, lawyers are specifically trained to write unambiguously, but even they can't do it. If they could, there wouldn't be lawsuits about the meanings of laws and contracts. The computer could just tell you. Language is really, really hard. Words can only approximate the message a person wants to get across. Even me right now, I'm only giving you approximately what I want to tell you. There's imperfect words from an imperfect language coming from an imperfect mind and spoken by an imperfect mouth and heard by imperfect ears attached to imperfect minds trying to interpret what they mean. So it's perfectly understandable that we have so many miscommunications with people, even the people that we know the best and who know us the best. So when we look at ancient books such as are in the Bible, is it any wonder that people still argue about what they mean? They were written in languages that no one speaks today and translated by teams of experts who often don't fully agree among themselves as to what the best translation of a given word or phrase should be. The more important a document, the more we want to get the interpretation right, the greater our tendency is to treat language like math. At least that's how it seems to me. So as an example, in math we have if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. But in language we often have multiple layers of figurative language. The Bible says God is love, for example, and it also says God is a consuming fire. But we can't conclude from that love is a consuming fire, although there might be contexts where that metaphor is appropriate. And we can't treat the terms God and love interchangeably either. The Bible makes no special attempt to be unambiguous. It wasn't written with our modern legalese, and people recognize this fact, and that most passages could be interpreted in multiple ways. So they decided to try to codify what the proper interpretation is, and they composed creeds. Creeds were then used to distinguish real Christians from false Christians. But the problem with that is the creed then becomes the standard by which matters are judged rather than the Bible. This has been the source of much division within Christianity over most of the last 2,000 years. And this violates Christ's commandment that we Christians be one and love one another as he loved us. He never said that would be easy, he just said to do it. We aren't going to be able to fix all of Christianity, or I should say all the ways we've failed to live out Christianity properly, because there's nothing wrong with Christianity. The problem is always us. But we can recognize the communication problem we have and be gracious to others when they misunderstand the Bible or misunderstand us.